On this episode, David Pannell and I talk economics and the water-sensitive city, and 3 key items that you need to consider if you're commissioning any sort of economics work. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Ideanthro. Coming to you today from Perth at the 2017 CRC for Water Sensitive Cities Conference. You can see that we have a guest with us today, David Pannell. David, I'll give you a second to, I suppose, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are. But I'm very excited to have David along because I have been secretly stalking your blog for quite a few years, which I feel is a very useful way for a non-economist to get a bit of a taste of economics and stuff. But David, why don't you introduce yourself and we'll get into this.
Okay, I'm a Professor of Environmental Economics at the University of Western Australia, and I'm a Director of a Centre for Environmental Economics and Policy, and part of what we do is work on water issues, which is why I'm at this conference. We're very interested in water pollution, in water quality, and the use of water to create green spaces in urban areas, and a whole other pricing of water.
Yeah, and so you've been doing some work over several years and going to be continuing into the future.
Yep.
Around various bits of the economics of water-sensitive cities. How do we make a case for them? How do we value different elements? How do we determine actually of the possibilities of a water-sensitive future, which ones are actually worth doing and which ones sound good but don't quite stack up?
Yep.
What's been done today? What's available that people could find?
Okay, this centre that we're part of has been going for several years.
Yep.
So we've had a round of research projects as part of that, and in that work we focused on a few different things. I guess the main gap that we were trying to fill was evidence around the importance to people of the sort of intangible benefits that come from water sensitive investments. So we're talking about things like rain gardens, constructed wetlands, issues that try to improve the livability of urban areas.
Yep.
Some of the benefits for those things are fairly obvious in some cases. Some of them actually have a price.
Yep.
So relatively easy to quantify the benefits. So things like water savings. There's a price for water. You can work out what that's worth.
We saved that, so therefore,
yeah.
Yep.
But something that improves the ability of people to have nice recreation in their local area, or that they appreciate the aesthetics of, or that has a more sort of environmental, ecological benefit. Much harder to sort of put a dollar value on.
Yeah.
So economists have developed a range of tools of different types to try and do that, so that we can actually compare those sort of benefits with the other types of benefits and also with the costs, so that we can make those sort of judgments that you were sort of saying, which of these things are most likely to be worth doing.
Yeah, and this is critical, because if you had a project that's had lots of easily quantifiable market benefits,
yes,
and not many non-market benefits,
yes,
and then the other way around,
yeah,
no market benefits and lots of hard to quantify
you'll
benefits.
make the wrong decision.
Exactly.
You'll go with the one where everything's easily priced, and ignore the benefits that you're getting from the more intangible type of benefits.
Got you. Okay. And so if someone's
sorry, the other thing I'd say about that
yes,
is that, the other reason this is important is that there's always many things we could invest in, and you have to choose, right?
Yep.
Right. We have nowhere near enough money in these sort of programs to fund everything we'd like.
If we had unlimited resources, this
wouldn't
matter, would it? Okay. So if someone's got a taste for this, maybe got a project at the moment that they're interested, like what's currently available out of the CRC that might interest people, might give them a taste in this space?
So we've produced, for that particular area of work, we've produced a review of studies that have been completed, our own studies, but sort of a summary of our own studies, but also around 250 other pieces of work of that type from around the world.
Yep.
And that's the first stage towards trying to convert that into some tool that water utilities or local governments or state government agencies can use to help them with their economic analysis of these investments.
Got you. So at the moment, it's a case of perhaps a skilled economist could pick up that research and look at it,
yep,
and apply it,
yep,
but in the future, the CRC is trying to get to the point where it's more easily accessible to more people,
yeah,
without that economics.
That's
background.
right. I guess we wouldn't expect that non-economists would suddenly start to do economic analyses,
yep,
but what we do want is for them to be economically literate to the point where they can be asking the right questions,
yep,
they can be thinking about these investments like an economist would, even without going to the extent of actually undertaking a full benefit cost analysis themselves.
And I like that term, economic literacy, because for me, I was telling you off camera this little story of when I first joined the industry. I learned a lot about the stormwater quality side of stuff first, and ended up in a flood management team. And I quickly realised I at least needed to be literate enough to talk to the flooding people. Yeah. And so I went out and tried to figure out how to do that. And so the question I've been really keen to ask you is, okay, so say there's someone, whatever, they're a stormwater engineer, they're a landscape architect, they're a water planner, whatever discipline, and they're starting to see the potential benefit of, I'd like to get some economic analysis done. I don't personally have the skills. I want to engage someone to do it.
Yeah.
How does someone like that become economically literate? How do they figure out what's the right question to ask? Are they about to engage an economist?
Yeah.
How do they know what to ask?
So I guess what I can do is highlight a few key elements of doing a well-considered economic analysis. So say a benefit cost analysis of an investment proposal.
So this might be the stuff that you would then put into a brief.
Exactly.
If you're asking for these things, you're at least taking a good step in the right direction.
Make sure that any brief that you prepare has these 3 ideas well expressed, and that you're thinking about them clearly yourself when you're thinking about what the project is and what you're comparing it to.
Yep.
So the 3 things I'd highlight are, first of all, the need for a really good definition of a baseline.
Okay.
When you invest in anything really, you're trying to change the world. The world would have existed without this investment, and things would have happened without this investment. Well, what did the world look like? What would the world have looked like without this investment?
Yep.
Because that's your benchmark. That's what you're comparing it to, and it might change. It's often dangerous to assume that if you didn't invest in this investment, things would stay as they are.
Yes.
If so, the environment might degrade, or if the project is about getting people to change their behaviour, some people might change their behaviour anyway, even without the project.
Yep.
So you've got to have some notion of what would have happened, some estimate of what would have happened without the project, to get a valid estimate of the benefits of the project, because the benefits of the project are only the difference between the results with the project and the results without the project.
Yeah.
It's not a before and after comparison, because the world can change without the project.
And so a tangible example, like we're standing in this this garden here, right? And so presumably people do maintenance to this. So if you were doing a cost, like an analysis of the maintenance here, you'd be comparing what would happen if we did nothing, i.e. it would degrade and weeds would grow and we'd lose amenity, versus if we do the maintenance, which is actually, it stays exactly as we see
in this case, it's a case where what you're trying to do is make the without scenario, without the investment, is it stays the same. Oh, sorry, it gets worse. And with the investment, it stays as it is.
And it's the difference between the two. It's the benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Okay? So that's a simple idea. But it's amazing how often the thinking about the without project scenario is really poor.
Gotcha.
People attribute benefits to an investment that actually shouldn't be attributed. They either underestimate or overestimate.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's number one is base scenario. Number two is?
Number 2 is about timing. So one of the issues with many investments is that they generate benefits for a very long time. So some of the sorts of things that we're interested in, a constructed wetland, some sort of vegetative investment or project, it's going to be around for years, hopefully decades, 50 years.
Yep.
And the bulk of the cost for establishing such a project is going to be up front. You're going to spend quite a bit of money in the first 3 or 5 years to sort of do the site work, to get something in place.
Yep.
Sure, there'll be ongoing maintenance costs as well, but in many cases, there's big costs up front.
Yep.
The benefits occur at some point in the future.
Yes.
The problem with that is that one way or another, the costs that you incur up front are going to generate an interest cost over time. So if you think about what happens with the interest on a housing, people are sort of familiar with a mortgage, and everyone's sort of familiar with the fact that in the long run, when you pay off your house, a large proportion of what you pay is the interest. It's not actually you're paying more in interest than what you paid for the house in some cases.
Yep.
So problem with interest is it compounds over time.
Yes.
So if you've got a project which has benefits in the present, costs in the present and benefits 30 or 40 years in the future, you've got to allow for the fact that there's going to be this accumulation of interest costs for 30 or 40 years.
Yep.
So the benefits in the future are going to have to be really big to outweigh these costs in the present.
Gotcha.
So it's a real challenge to getting the economics to stack up in many cases.
Yeah, and sorry to cut you off there, does this also tie into, if you've got a couple of options you're comparing, this same analysis could help with, if one of them has, say, high capital costs and lower long-term costs, and vice versa, that can start to that ties into the same analysis.
The size of the cost and the timing of the cost, the size of the benefits and the timing of the benefits, all come into play, right?
Yes.
So it's really about being very clear about the timing of all of the benefits and costs that occur.
Gotcha.
That's just the second one.
So that's number 2. Okay, number 3.
Third one is make sure that you are taking account of the fact that things don't always go as you would like.
Okay.
There's a variety of things that can go wrong.
Yep.
And if you're investing you're thinking about investing in a whole number of different projects, for any one project, you sort of need to think about it in probabilistic terms. You know, what's most likely to be the result, or what's the probability of certain outcomes occurring? So there's things that could go wrong. If it's a behaviour change project, only a proportion of people who you'd like to change their behaviour end up doing so.
Yep.
Is it 90%? Is it 5%? Would make a huge difference to the outcome of the project. So you need to have a handle on that sort of thing.
Yep.
Technical feasibility of a project. If it's an engineering project, you're building stuff, what could go wrong?
Yep.
What's the chances that you build it and it actually works?
Yep.
Will that count for that? Often, we talked about maintenance in that last discussion. You need to allow for the fact that maintenance is costly. Maintenance funding is required for many projects pretty much forever, for as long as you want the benefits to be generated.
Yep.
What are the chances that that those maintenance funds will be available? Depending on the type of organisation you are, someone has to be willing to stump up those maintenance funds. Will they? Who will it be?
Yep.
So it's thinking through in a realistic way the different risks and challenges and things that could go wrong, and accounting for that in a quantitative way when you estimate your sort of probabilistic measure of the benefits.
Yeah, and this is a real thing, because there's a cognitive bias. It's essentially when we've got this something we're predicting into the future. You'll be able to remind me of the correct term. But when you're predicting into the future, and you're really excited about these potential projects, we have a habit of overestimating the benefits and playing down the negatives.
That's exactly
very real.
It is. Now, it's been well recognised. Psychologists have a term for it. They call it the planning fallacy.
Yeah.
And yes, people who are evaluating, developing projects and thinking about how good they are likely to be, routinely overestimate the likely benefits. So there's a great example where it was in Europe, I think, where they're looking at trains. So looking at a whole number of different railway investments or projects that have been done. On average, they overestimated the number of passengers by 100%. Right?
Yep. Okay. Yes, which is fairly significant when your returns and
bit
your
of a
fees.
mistake.
Yep. Gotcha. Okay. So there's a taste of the CRC's, done to date. Pretty serious review of what's out there in terms of the data. In this space of like the economics of water sensitive cities. That's ultimately moving towards.
So in this new phase, we're developing a range of tools that will make all the information accessible and help people who are not economists think like an economist, if you like, sort of lead them by the hand into an economic analysis, so that they can account for the things that we've been talking about in a valid and rigorous way.
Yeah, and then you can combine that with those 3 things if you're writing a brief. Put those tools and the 3 things together, and you're on your way.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. I appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything else we should have touched off on?
No, that's good.
That's all good? Awesome. Well, David, thank you for taking the time to have a chat. It was also nice to meet you after stalking your blog for many years. So I appreciate it. Have a good day.
All right, good on you. Thanks.
Cheers. See ya.